to power is one of the solutions being touted to help solve South Africa's power crisis. While delivering his department's budget vote in Parliament, Energy Minister Gwede Mantashe said in the second quarter the department will issue a request for proposals for the procurement of gas to power totaling 3,000 megawatts. At the same time, the Transport Department has granted Karpowership access to the country's 3 ports. The controversial deal has sparked concern from opposition parties and environmental groups. We speak now to Stefanie Fick from the organization Undoing Tax Abuse about their concerns. Stefanie, thank you very much for your time. Let's start there, I guess. What seems to be the issue of contention for OUTA?
Good afternoon, Dudu. I think it starts with it's just going to cost us too much. I mean, when this deal, let's go back to when NERSA granted them generation licenses, they were talking about this deal going to cost South Africa 200 billion rand over 20 years. You know, and then the Ukraine war happened, Russia, and the rand-dollar exchange rate not being what it's supposed to be. And the contract is heavily reliant then on gas, and then we will buy it, in dollars, not in rands. So we are now estimating that this contract, these ships, is probably going to cost us 500 billion. But you have to see this against the background. Firstly, how is a 20-year contract any emergency solution? I mean, that sounds to me like a more permanent solution. And I think if you look at just the short, medium and long-term solutions that Eskom has already presented to Parliament, if we put the same amount of energy into fixing what is wrong at Eskom, getting rid of the corruption, getting rid of the sabotage, getting Madupi Kusile online, etc., I think we will not need emergency electricity. And also, the IPPs, the renewables and all of that in order to expand our grid. I also think that the way this deal was done is there's just alarm bells all over the show. I mean, we are taking NERSA to court specifically because we are worried about the fact that Karpower was granted generation licenses so they can generate electricity from gas without there being environmental closure. That is what is still currently happening, because these ships are going to stand there in our harbors, and we need to know to what extent is going to be detrimental to the environment. Plus, we heard that they got permission to be in the ports only in February 2023. So how on earth did the regulator that's supposed to look after these type of contracts grant them generation licenses without investigating all of these things?
And then you've got the electricity minister who's said that perhaps grant a 5-year deal and not a 20-year deal. Is there a difference?
Yes, there is a difference in the sense that a 5-year is starting to sound like an emergency type of solution. Although the Minister of Finance has said if you are looking at a 5-year deal, the electricity is going to be even more expensive. We must remember that if we are currently complaining about electricity tariffs, a deal like this that is really very expensive is going to, the electricity tariffs is just going to increase. It's not going to get better. And what's the saddest, part of this is Karpower is not a plug and play. So even if they get to permission tomorrow to start with this deal, they will only add to the grid in a year's time, because it is, the ships is one thing, but the infrastructure need to be there in order to take the electricity from the harbors up into South Africa. That's that is point number one. So it's not a plug and play, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. And if you consider all of these things, it will only help with maybe 1 to 2 stages of load shedding. So if you're talking about stage 8, it will probably help you until stage 6. And then thirdly, it will not give the communities and families that still do not have electricity, it will not help them.
Sure. Stefanie, I think you touched on the solution a little bit earlier on, and you've got the Integrated Resource Plan of 2019, you've got the Just Energy Transition Plan of 2023, and all of these plans are null and void if the situation, amongst others, of corruption, sabotage, etc., are not attended to. If I'm understanding you correctly, it was before SCOPA that the SIU, the South African Police Services, the Hawks, the board of Eskom, the Public Enterprises Minister said they know nothing of this report or this intelligence report by the former GCEO, which the chair of SCOPA raised as a concern, and even suggested that if this is left unattended to, it could be what, state capture 2.0?
Yeah, one has to wonder whether state capture ever ended at Eskom, because we know, from the Zondo Commission to what extent, there were corruption at Eskom. And just by the way, we can count how many people has been held accountable for the mess that happened in Eskom. But I think what we've heard now is that, there's sabotage. The infrastructure, it's all, there wasn't any maintenance. So the power stations are struggling. So what all of this is telling you is that, we need more electricity. So we need to put more power producing stuff on the grid. If that means, whether, coal stations, we already, people tend to get into this whole argument. If you bat for renewables, then you are against coal. We said that we are going to go into this just transition. Coal is not going to end tomorrow. There's a just transition. It's a long-term goal in order to move a little bit away from coal and go into renewables. But I think there's a reluctance to get renewables on the grid. I think anybody has said that, by having solar is all and end all, but it is an alternative, and it's a cheaper alternative than trying to get 3 ships in the harbour that's going to tie us for the next 20 years and cost us an enormous amount of money.
Well, you've got other sectors of the society that say, well, it's not going to be that cheap, and it's not going to rather be that just, and that it is the working class of this country that are going to feel the freeze, if you will, of renewables as well, of this just energy transition. What is there to be said about that argument?
Well, I think that's a transition. I think we have been very fortunate, and I'm not talking about really the communities that's still not on a grid. There's no infrastructure. They don't have electricity. They don't have water. We can't even fix the horrific situation that is currently at Hammanskraal. It's a just transition. So are you are we saying that, yes, we will have to transition, that things will not work like it worked in the past? Probably. But I think we also, instead of looking at solutions that is easier to accomplish, we are looking at stuff like Karpowership for 20 years. We are looking at nuclear, which is also, whether you are against or for nuclear is going to take a long time, and it's also extremely expensive. Now, I'm not saying that solar and wind and all of that is going to be cheap, but if you have to compare what we, for example, going to pay for car power, that electricity, versus what we will pay for example, the renewables. So I think it is a combination. The energy experts, I don't always think that they even agree on what is best for South Africa, but I think it's a mix. I think what I'm hearing from all the experts is that there is going to be a mix. What is the problem currently with coal is that there are so much corruption, fraud, and theft that just on that level, I want to say, I think so many people are making money from the fact that we are so set on coal that it's no longer about the whole discussion. It is about how much money am I going to lose if coal is taken out of the equation.
Stefanie Fick is with the organization Undoing Tax Abuse. Thank you so much for your time.